Hey guys, welcome back to another live stream edition of Radio 815, the podcast dedicated to examining the work of writer director J.J. Abrams. I'm your host for this time around. My name is Marcelo Inostroza, joined as always by my fellow co host, Matt Crandall. And on today's edition of our live show, we'll be talking about Duster, episode 3, entitled You're No Good. So, Matt, I have a question for you. I get to use my Rolodex for this week.
Yeah, if only it was a Filofax, then it would be right up J.J. Abrams' alley. Because when he said that, I was like, this is so close to the Filofax from Taking Care of Business. But here we are. Last week was like the stereotypical bad robot episode. And then last week, it was the Josh Holloway 15 hours earlier. And this week, it's Nina is in peril. And then we go 13 hours earlier. So we do the in media res thing again, which I don't have a beef with because it does feel like when Alias would do it for 15 out of 24 episodes in a season. And I'm like, okay, Duster's going to do it for at least 2 out of 8, which is a quarter of the season. But that's because this episode was again co-written J.J. Abrams and Latoya Morgan. So like the two creators have written these first 3 episodes together, and the vibes are getting better. I think that like this show is building week to week in exactly the way that you want, where we are starting to get more into the serialized stuff. So last week seems like more of an anomaly where it was like, you know, Jim's going to go off on a mission and the serialized stuff around him is smaller, but this week it was almost all carryover story. We're getting deep into the mythology, and I dig it. Like the vibes are good. It does feel like this mystery box J.J. Abrams kind of show, but also has this fun 70s grit to it. And at one point in this episode, someone yells, "You gotta follow the numbers." To which the next person says, "What numbers?" And I'm sure everybody watching screamed out, 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42. Like, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that like JJ's bad robot filter didn't go like ping, like we got to remove this. Breen is telling us that we got to follow the numbers. And then I just like, when she's like, what numbers? And he goes, I can't tell you because the pots are listening. The pans could give a fuck, but the pots. And I'm like, okay, like there's some funny lines in this show that really work for me.
The thing that I loved about this week's episode is the character development between Jim and Saxton. Basically, Saxton has to go to a secret meeting of a bunch of crime lords that he's trying to negotiate a deal with. And earlier on in the episode, Nina meets Jim and basically tells him, "I can't build my case if you don't find some way to find out what your boss is doing, who he's doing it with, and I need some hard evidence so I can bust your boss, so I can find out if he killed your brother, and in turn uh, if he killed my father." The one thing that is really bothering me about the construction of the show so far is that for most episodes, Nina is over here with her partner and Jack is over here with Saxon and his crew. I thought by this point they will be coming together and they will be running the game together, but it's really, really, really frustrating for me watching these two amazing characters be on opposite sides of the same coin every fucking week. And um, I also really enjoy the fact that Nina disobeys orders again this week. She's like the queen. She's like the head FBI agent person who disobeys orders every week. But I feel that JJ and Latoya Morgan gave her a reality check this week when she disobeyed orders, because the individual who she went to go see, as we saw in the opening of this episode, almost tried to fucking kill her. So I think that she's going to be. I think that she's going to move more cautiously in the weeks ahead. What did you think about that? Are you tired of her brash actions?
Well, no, because she's supposed to be kind of this young
Yeah.
hotshot, right? And for all of her brash actions, there's still like the scene where the old man dresses her down and is like, you know, I don't have a problem with your kind, but, and then you're like, oh God, like this isn't good. And like her and Awan listen as this old guy says, like, you know, Hoover did this and then you people came, and you're just like, God damn it. Like every turn, there's just a racist or a misogynistic
Right.
piece of crap, right? So
Right.
I don't blame her for trying to overstep her reach at this point, but it could become a bigger issue. And to your point of, like, you know, Nina and Jim only get like one or two scenes together each week, and so far it's like they're meeting in a secret parking garage for an update, and then they have to go their separate ways. And it's partly because Nina arriving did put herself on like everyone's radar, that she's out and about and she's looking into Saxton. So Jim can't be seen with her too much. Otherwise, you're going to have people like grooms coming out of the woodwork to extort the fact that these two are hanging out together. And as we
Mhm.
find out, you know, Jim goes to the hospital early on to find out if grooms survived. And they say, like, you know, it's looking pretty bad. And he's like, oh, good. Like, I'm glad. Hopefully this guy dies. But of course, we know, you know, you don't get Donald Logue for just an episode, like half an episode. Like, he's going to be coming back. That guy's going to survive, you know, with some sort of miracle recovery by the end of the season. And that creep is going to become a problem because he knows that Nina and Jim are working together. And, you know, now that he almost died, I'm sure that's going to not sit well with him. Um, I did love that at that same moment where he goes to the hospital to check to find out if Groom survived or not, he does see Izzy with her new boyfriend. And, you know, just this clean cut. It's Matt Lauria from Friday Night Lights, Luke Caffrey. And he was on Parenthood for a while. But so seeing him, and he's got like this mustache, and he's just like a nice guy, Bruce or whatever his name was. And he's meeting Jim. And I just love when Jim's like, yeah, I'll have breakfast with you. And the look on Izzy's face, like, oh God, please no, don't let this happen. And he's like, I'm just kidding. Like, I don't have time. But because we know that Jim still kind of has feelings for Izzy, it seems like, you know, they are not together, but obviously he is Luna's father, and that's the secret that they can't reveal. But it was interesting seeing her with, you know, this new boyfriend who works at the hospital, the doctor, and seeing Jim kind of turn on the charm in like a poking fun at this guy kind of way. And I'm sure that, again, you know, it was a 1.5 minute scene, but like we got a dude who is a face. So like, I'm sure he'll be coming back into this at some point.
Mhm. Actually, seeing Jim react to another man dating the woman that he loves is very very interesting. I like the way that Joshua Jackson played it. Like Matt said, he was extremely polite, but there was something behind his eyes going, "Of all people, you date this guy?" Like that is seriously punching above my weight. So I really like the way that Jim handled that. I also liked the small interaction when Jim went to Braxton's office to pick up the payouts for the week, and he talked to Saxon's number one muscle, and the guy had like on a Clint Eastwood replica hat, and he goes, "This is the same hat that Clint Eastwood wore in The Good and the Bad and the Ugly." So, like you said, the jokes were on point this week, much more than last week. So I found that to be really, really interesting and really, really well cooked into the episode.
Yeah, good, bad, and the ugly, and you got 2 out of the 3, which was really funny. And
Yeah.
I enjoyed that, you know, for the beginning, we get a lot of Nina and Awan doing stuff together. And I really like the character of Awan. And there's a funny moment where they're just talking, and he ends up talking about how he likes to take baths. And so, like, just like random tangents where he's like, yeah, I like baths. And it's like, okay. So I like the small moments like that. But then seeing them as they have to infiltrate, because again, she decides she knows better than everybody who's telling her, you know, Breen is bad news. She's like, no, we're going to the cuckoo's nest. We're getting in there. And of course, her and Awan end up having to dress up like the staff because the guy who that they kind of charm to let them in, um, he says like, you're not going to get 2 feet in this place unless you're dressed like the help. And again, it's the time and the racism that's still around, right? Like, a native guy and a black woman walking in nice dress in that place will raise eyebrows. Dressed as a janitor and a nurse, nobody gives a shit. And so it's like that's how they can infiltrate these places. So I like seeing that as the other side of the thing. We're seeing a lot of Jim and Saxton together. And again, through that plot line, racism does come up again because there's an incident at a bar. But seeing the way that the dynamics are different and also getting more of the backstory of Jim and Saxton. And the whole time, we know that Jim is really conflicted because his mission here is to prove that Sax did not kill his brother, that he didn't order the hit on Joey. But as we go through this episode, the signs that he's somehow involved, even though everything he says is, family and love, things are starting to add up because there is hilarious, again, Jim's dad, awesome Corbin Burnson, and his wife, who hates Jim. The the couple's getting it on in the middle of the day, and Jim just walks in because he needs his dad's help, and like he's almost scarred for life because of what's going on. And I love again the stepmother's reaction. She's just embarrassed and mad, and she hates Jim so much. But then they have a nice talk in the garage, where the dad says, "Look, back in those days, C4, the only person who could get that would have been Paris Guilford. Paris Guilford is like the person in town who, if you need something like that, you go for it." And he says, "Look, propane explosion never sat right with me with Joey's death. And since that day, before that day, I used to sleep like a baby. The day that your brother died, I haven't had a good night's sleep since. Like, it's a life altering, never get over it, never out of your mind thing." And he said, Sax is family, so you don't rat on Sax, you don't throw Sax under the bus. But if Joey was murdered, you find out who did it and you fucking kill them. Now, it doesn't enter the conversation that it could be Sax that did it, but Jim knows it as his dad tells him that. What are you feeling when they have this conversation and we get this name, Paris Guilford, that now Jim has kind of a lead to figure out if that's where the C4 came from?
I think Paris Guilford could be a key story point into figuring out if Sax did indeed kill Jim's brother. I think that Paris Guilford is someone who's going to come into play in the later episodes. But I love that you mentioned there when Jim's dad says, "Whatever you find out while you're working with this FBI woman, leave Sax out of it because he's family." I wonder how Jim is going to handle once he finds concrete evidence that Sax is indeed behind his brother's murder. How is he going to relay that to his father? Because Jim's relationship with his father seems very tight, and I don't think that when he gets information like that, I don't think that he would hold that back from his father. If he did, his father would fucking kill him. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Jim's father handles this information, because we've already seen how Jim is sort of trying to process it, because from week to week he goes, Sax didn't do it, then Sax may have done it, then there's no way Sax has done it, then I'm going to prove that Sax didn't do it to this, so this FBI woman could leave me and my boss the fuck alone. So I'm very interested to see how Jim is going to relay this information, whatever it is, to his loved ones once he fucking figures it out.
Yeah,
Because
and
I think
yeah, go ahead.
no, because I think that could be one of the toughest things for Jim to have to endure in this season.
And now, as we go, and again, we like really re-examine Joey, Joey and Sax and Jim, and then by the end, you know, Sax is talking about his favorite song, "You're No Good," and then it's on in the car, and there's a moment where he goes, "Oh yeah, I remember this one night I was in this car and I heard this song, and that was the night I was somewhere because I was meeting Paris Guilford." And of course, then Jim's like, he does a spit take almost. He's like, "Paris Guilford." He's like, "Excuse me, I got to go make a phone call," and it's like very suspicious. And he does phone Paris Guilford, and he says, "Sax needs C4 like on the Joey Ellis hit. So, like, can we get that same order again?" And Paris is like, "Yeah, okay." And so, what I'm wondering, and if this is going to be the case, was Sax involved, or was someone who's working for Sax did the order through Paris Guilford and blew up Joey without Sax's knowledge? So, like, the only thing we got in that, like, Sax needs that thing again. Well, we don't know that Sax ordered the hit, do we? Or what are you feeling?
That's a really really interesting take that I didn't consider. What if Sax doesn't know that somebody within his organization made the order to kill Jim's brother,
Yeah,
and
what if
that
Cheddar Bob did it? What if Good,
oh
Bad,
my
and the Ugly Hat is the guy who called Paris Guilford that night and said, like, "Sax wants this, give me this stuff," and nobody double checked?
yeah, that tracks because when Jim goes to see Cheddar Bob in this episode, when Jim brings up when Jim actually shows interest in Saxon's schedule for the week, Cheddar Bob is very very suspicious, and he goes, "Why
Right.
do you want to know what the boss? Why do you want to know what the boss is doing? That's none of your concern. You're just a driver." So what if like that theory that you have, Crandall, is blowing my mind up because I didn't consider that. I considered that Sax may, you know, that Sax was like a double agent or working for somebody bigger, but it never occurred to me that someone within Sax's organization could have ordered the hit on Jim's brother without Sax's knowledge. I never considered that. Like,
So I just wonder if that's where we might go, in a way that at a certain point Jim will have already given too much dirt to the feds on Sax, and then he will find out that Sax didn't do this, and that'll be like a moment of regret, but the wheels will already be in motion to take him down, that he can't stop it.
mhm.
So, like, he thought that this, like, father like figure had betrayed him, but he hadn't. So I just wonder if that's where we're heading. Speaking of father like figures, there is a really interesting scene between Sax and his son where he's like checking in, and the son just keeps like crying, and Sax goes, "Jesus Christ, they told me that the drugs you'd be able to make you emotional, but this is fucking ridiculous." And I just loved seeing that, because, in the 70s, like, a dude who's just crying wouldn't be really accepted. Whereas nowadays, like, I'm sure the family wouldn't be that phased by this guy who can't stop crying. But that was just a really funny moment. And then that just shows, when Sax and Jim are kind of having their bonding, like, Sax can't get that from his actual son right now because he's still recovering from this operation.
Actually, that was really, really, really surprising to me because Sachs has always said, in one way or another, that he viewed Jim's brother as his own son. So maybe following up your theory, what if it wasn't the guy with the cowboy hat? What if the guy that ordered the hit on Jim's brother was Saxon's youngest son? To get back at his father for not giving him the respect that he deserves. Look, at this point in the series, we don't know too much about Saxon's younger son, but we do know that he actually craves his father's attention in uh, 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 in a much stronger way than his sister does, because his sister wants to carve out her own piece of the Saxon organization for herself.
Right.
So maybe even with a new heart, maybe Saxon's younger son is a lamb in sheep's clothing per se. That
And
could go somewhere.
that could go somewhere. And, the fact that he's got a lot of downtime now is keeping us from seeing how sneaky and what moves he might have been making before all this went down. So we may have like a flashback episode where he's in better health, where we kind of see what happened. Especially, you know, we've done the in media res thing twice. I'm sure we're gonna get some flashbacks at some point, because this is a Bad Robot show. So like,
Do you
we're gonna see something, and maybe it's gonna be what actually happened with Joey, whether it be, Cheddar Bob, there was a power struggle, or was Joey an informant and Sax found out?
oh
Was he
that
working
oh
was he working with Breen to, that agent, was he trying to help him? But then when he got blown up, then Breen goes off the deep end and, starts talking to the pots, not the pans. The pans couldn't give a fuck, but the pots. So I just wonder, there's still so much that we don't know about Jim's brother.
yeah.
And the only thing we know is how much he meant to people, right? We know
Mm.
that the father has never had a good night's sleep. He meant a lot to Sax. He obviously meant a lot to Jim. So are we going to get the episode where we spend a day with Joey in his prime that will give us a ton of answers? Do you think that's on the table, or is this just part of the MacGuffin stuff to move us forward?
No, I definitely think an episode like that where we actually get to see Jim's brother and we actually get to see why he was so beloved by everybody is on the table. And the only reason I say that is because, like you said, this is a Bad Robot joint. And Bad Robot, for those of you who are listening and watching us, thank you very much. Is notorious for doing flashback episodes both in Lost and in Alias to some extent. I have a question for you. Do you think that we're going to do more episodes structured from front to back, or do you think these two episodes are enough for JJ and Latoya Morgan?
I do think that, like, we can't, next week we got to just do like an A to B normal episode, um because otherwise it's gonna be noticeable, right, that we're doing the same trick all the time. So I definitely think next week, structure wise, is going to shake things up a little bit, but I'm interested to see what that will be. um we mentioned a little bit that there was the scene where Nina and Awan get shit from the older guy who's like, yeah, you're kind, you're here because of this mandate of Hoover or whatever. But what also happens in this episode that actually I really liked is that one of the janitors at the FBI says to Nina, like, my family is so excited that you're here. Like, I'm telling them, like, you'll never believe it, one of the best agents in the place is a black lady, right? And add to that, there's a scene where Grunberg wants to ream her out, right? And he's like, fuck, god damn it. He's like, my wife loves you. And she's like, the fuck? I don't know your wife. And he's like, yeah, I know you don't know my wife, but I told her about you. And that was a mistake, because now she is so excited that you're here and that you're doing good. And I can't be mad at you for too long, or my wife is going to get pissed. How did you feel about that? Because I just thought that was hilarious that, like, Grunberg wants to discipline her more, but he can't because, it's impressive. And this is a time where, like, there weren't a lot of black women in the FBI. And so, like, she's making a name for herself, even in the Abbott household, which is really funny.
Greg's scene in this episode where he tries to remount Nina for disobeying orders again, but can't do it because of Nina's popularity with Greg's wife. Essentially, it's a wonderful scene. But I also love it because although Greg is reaming out Nina for not following proper procedure, I mentioned in earlier episodes of Duster that I believe that there's another rat in this FBI office. And I think that Greg, in his own way, is trying to protect Nina, and his form of protection is to ream her out when she disobeys orders. But because she's so popular, like Matt said, he can't even do that now. So the only thing that he can do is sort of like sort of like steer her away from controversy, but he's gonna have a hell of time doing that because she doesn't listen to fucking anybody. The only person that she really confides in, other than Awan, is her mother. But we haven't even met her mother. We've only heard her mother over the phone.
Yeah,
So
and it was one phone call, and she said her mom loves Chekhov, and it's like, okay, well, J.J. Abrams loves a good Chekhov's gun scenario, so like I'm sure that was very bizarre. Where she's like, "Yeah, mom, I know you love Chekhov. Okay, I gotta go," and I'm like, "Oh shit, what's gonna happen with this mom? The mom herself is gonna become a Chekhov's gun."
yeah. The other scene that I thought was very, very funny and very, very poignant to me personally, because I've had other people throughout the course of my life read me for this. When Nina and Awan are sitting in the car, I believe they're at the mental hospital at this point, and Nina asked Awan for his wallet, for she wants money for something, and Nina notices that A1 has a Superman wallet, and basically she chastises a poor guy for having a wallet that essentially is made for kids. Again, guys, this is the '70s. It's not today where nerds rule. But I really love the way that A1 handles it. He basically goes, listen, you and other people can read me out on anything you want, but stay away from Superman and stay away from what he means. Stay away from what he means from me. And after that speech, the director pans over to Nina, and she just gives a smirk. And I really, really, really like that moment for to to find out some more critical information about Awan, because we don't really know that much about him. No, we don't know as much information about him as we do Nina. So it was really nice to get that small character moment from Awan and Nina in the car. What did you think about that?
Yeah, well, it screamed J.J. Abrams, right?
Yep.
Because we know J.J. wrote a Superman movie that never got made, right? And
Flyby. Yep.
I like that yeah, because you're right. It's the '70s. It's not when nerds rule. It wasn't comic culture. Is pop culture. And she's like, Superman, what do you eat? And he's like, I'm gonna give you this money, but say another fucking word about Clark Kent, and I will get the fuck out of here. Truth, justice, and the American way is my life. So you can make fun of me for anything, but if you make fun of Superman, get the fuck out. And I was just like, he did it in a nicer way, but that was basically it. It was like, Superman is off limits because he's the best. Um,
Right.
and I really liked it. And of course, you know, Warner Brothers is happy, I'm sure, that there's a Superman reference in a TV show 4 weeks before a new Superman movie comes out. But it doesn't feel like, corporate synergy. It's just one of the creators happened to love this property. And maybe Latoya Morgan also loves Superman. Who knows? But I just having that be an A1 trait in this episode, we know he's got a Superman wallet and he likes to take baths. So like A1's not racking up the cool points, but I'm digging the dude. I think he's a very interesting character that I am enjoying. Um, and that is just a small moment, but it does go a long way. So I really like that. Now I gotta ask, do you think the cactus is bugged? Because Nina gets a gift of the cactus from the cleaner who says, "Oh, they were just gonna throw this away, but I think you should have it." And then her and Awan are like, she's talking around her desk, and then later she gets reamed out for some shit that like I don't know how people found out exactly what that shit was, but then she's sitting there and we kind of get an out of focus. The cactus is kind of prominently featured, even though it's not in focus in the frame at the end on her desk. And of course, maybe I watch too many TV shows or whatever. I'm like, did somebody bug this fucking thing? And she doesn't realize that like everything she's saying at her desk is being heard.
No, it's no, I'm right there with you. It's highly probable that that cactus that she got from that young lady from the cleaning services is bugged. Definitely, 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 definitely. Because why would I mean? Look, the way that JJ and Letitia set it up is great, because they set it up as this young black girl who's inspired by Nina wants to give her a gift. But what if that young black girl was actually lying through her teeth? What if that young black girl was forced to give Nina this gift as a way to spy on Nina, to make sure that she doesn't step on too many toes and she doesn't blow up something bigger that's lying in wait underneath the department. So
Yeah,
so that's a
I was gonna say I'm of two minds where that or she gave it to her and it just happened to actually like it was left in the trash on purpose, hoping that somebody would find it, or it was bugged after. So I don't know if the cleaner is like involved or it's just she happened to give it to her and then somebody else, you know, took that opportunity.
Mhm. I've been actually wondering this for a couple weeks, but I wanted to get a couple episodes into the show before I brought it up. Are you disappointed with the lack of car action in the show? The show is called Duster. The show's called Duster. It's the show is the name of the car, and there hasn't been a lot of car action.
You know, I haven't been disappointed, but it is one of those things where maybe the concept in the pilot was more like let's get this about this driver and he does all this cool driving, and then when they like extensively retooled the first episode when they got a full series order, and then because the first episode they started filming 4 years ago and then they like reshot and did a bunch of stuff. So I just wonder if as they evolved the concept, the fact that he's a driver became less and less important, and it was mostly like when you say Duster and you show that picture that looks kind of like Bullet meets Smokey and the Bandit, we kind of get maybe the tone that you're going for and the like 70s aesthetic vibe. But both of those properties, Bullet and Smokey and the Bandit, do have like tons of car action. So I
Yeah.
do wonder eventually it might just be that, you know, we're shooting this show in Albuquerque. Obviously, that means lower budget, better tax breaks, and maybe it means we only have enough money for two big car chases in 8 episodes. So we did like a little bit of car action in the first episode, but maybe we've got like two giant set pieces coming up where when we view this whole season as an 8 episode complete season, then
Mhm.
we'll see like, oh, it's because it was like Mission Impossible where they have two giant set pieces, but they're near the last half or whatever.
Right. Because because you did just mention that that this show was initially shot 4 years ago, but once they got the green light from HBO, I'll never call it Max, they had to retool it. Um, so if I'm understanding you correctly, when they retooled it, they discovered that it's more of like a procedural kind of deal because the most that we see of the car is Jim going from this place to this place to this place. He doesn't really utilize his car in the way that you and I would think if the show is called Duster. So yeah,
Yeah, well, that's just speculation. Like we still
right,
don't know, and
right.
also, you know, we are early because we've
Yeah, we're
spent these
very
two
early.
episodes now with the in media res and kind of like getting acclimatized. If we don't, let's put it this way: if by episode 5 is done and we haven't had any more car action, then I think that that is something that just ended up taking a backseat as they made changes. Um,
Hmm.
but like the opening title, like with the theme and the toy cars racing around, there is things in that opening sequence, like the blue suede shoes are hanging off of a power line or whatever.
The Rolodex.
Yeah, so as I say, there's call outs in that to episodes that we have seen, and I think that there are to episodes we haven't seen. So like
Ah,
I think there is gonna be like a lot of stuff. Snowbird, that trucking company, has been like just sort of mentioned, but that's like a big part of the title sequence where the car's
right,
weaving through like a warehouse thing. So
right.
I think that the title sequence has a lot of key clues for like where we're going
Hmm.
because they probably made that after they had it done. And I think that hopefully Jim will get to put his number one driver skills to the test because even right now, you know, we're still waiting for that south of the border shoe to drop,
I think
and
that's coming.
it is coming at some point. But when they come, they're either going to have him have to do a task for them so they don't kill him, or he's going to have to do crazy car stuff just to get away from them. So like
Right.
whatever episode that happens, there's going to be a big car set piece, I'm sure. But at this point, it is a little bit like, yeah, why did you name the show after the car when it basically is just, it could be any car from what we've seen so far. It's not integral that, Jim is driving this Duster in any sort of special way, other than it just sounds like a cool 70s show when you hear the name.
Real quick, as we wrap up here, what did you think of like the final fight scene between Jim Saxon in the bar when they were coming back from Saxon's meeting? Because I really enjoyed that fight. I mean, it was a little bit choreographed for my liking, but still a great fight.
It was a little bit choreographed, but like, let's put it this way. Is there anything more satisfying than watching racist pieces of shit get their asses kicked in a pool hall? Like
It's awesome.
that's a
It's
tried and
awesome.
true convention that like when that happens in movies, you cheer, right? So
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, obviously there's a few moments where like it looks bad for Sax and Jim, but then they come out on top and you're like, good. These pieces of trash don't deserve, they deserved worse than what they got. And yeah, it's always like a good crowd pleasing moment where some piece of trash gets what they deserve.
Mhm. And lastly, before we say goodbye for this episode, are you surprised that we haven't gotten a Kelvin reference yet? Because you just mentioned that in the opening credits of the show, there's a trucker company name that's mentioned prominently. Are you surprised that that trucker company isn't called Kelvin Trucking or something like that?
I am, and I just wonder if like at a certain point, JJ has realized that he
Gone a
has
little bit of
used it,
crazy.
has used it, and the last few times that they used it on his TV shows, none of those TV shows went the way that they wanted because again, Kelvin prominently featured in Undercovers and in that episode of Alcatraz where there's a big billboard of Kelvin whatever it was. So I'm like, maybe he has retired the bit. Maybe he's taken a break. You know, obviously it's a family name, so like it does have more significance to him than just, these failed TV shows that he referenced his grandfather in because for a long time it was successful and popular TV shows that he was referencing his grandfather in. So I don't know. Or again, we're only on episode 3. If we could have something like that pop up, especially, we don't know the exact credits because you can go on IMDb and try and like guess the credits. But like JJ has had a hand in all 3 of these so far.
Mhm.
Um, so like obviously, even if he doesn't write any more of them, he was in the room. He was hands on this thing. This was not an Alias season 4
No,
scenario,
so
right?
no, no, it's not.
So so that's good. Like I'm
Yeah.
pumped that we
Yeah.
know
So
he was in, and according to IMDb, they think he wrote five
okay,
of the
okay,
8. But
okay,
again, we don't know for sure
because
because
IMDb is unreliable.
yeah, and the specifics of this show haven't been released. Like we're only
Right.
finding out titles and
Like the day
directors
before.
as they come out.
Right.
So who knows?
No, no. Before you went on IMDb, there, I was going to ask you if you thought that JJ and Letitia were going to pull um, a a Tyler Sheridan and write the whole thing, but clearly not.
And I don't think that they are, but maybe, maybe. Hopefully, they don't pull a Taylor Sheridan and make every twist and turn be nihilistic and like
Oh my
dark,
god!
and
Oh my god!
self-reflective. Um, the only other thing, you know, maybe they we'll have to see again. Episode titles we don't know. The first episode, Baltimore Changes Everything, didn't really mean anything except then we find out that was the nickname and whatever. But the last 2 have been song titles as episode titles. And so
Mhm.
I'm like, well, I don't think I was just Googling on my phone to make sure that there wasn't a song called Baltimore Changes Everything. And according to Spotify, like there isn't. So I just
No.
wonder, do you think they came up with this convention? Are they going to keep it going? with song titles being the episode titles? Or
I
is
oh
it
sorry.
just these two? It was just a random, the songs prominently featured ended up being part of the titles.
I just I just thought I just think that it was a random coincidence. I just think that it's I just think that it was a random coincidence that the songs either featured prominently in the episodes or the songs meant something within the episodes that they were featured in. Like and I personally don't like song titles of songs as episode titles. Let me think about that. No, that's a lie because I'm a big Grey's Anatomy fan, and everybody knows that the best Grey's Anatomy episodes were song titles. So that's a lie. um,
The only reason I'm wondering, like, I do like it, and it makes it easier for me to remember the episode names,
really?
because, well, because, like, like I said, this is an Elvis household that I'm
Right, right, right,
podcasting from. So, like, Suspicious Minds being the episode title, I immediately equate that. Oh, that's the Elvis one. And
right.
then You're No Good, like, that's such a key scene of this episode,
Hmm.
um, that, like, it makes sense. I think next week will really tell the tale. Whether if it's another episode that's titled after a song, then we'll know that that is the Duster convention, and the first episode is just the anomaly. Um,
Right.
if it's not, then we could just chalk it up to coincidence.
Right. So we'll, we'll have to see if that comes to fruition, and we'll have to see if Jin runs into some trouble with his friends south of the border in the next episode. But if that's all, I think that'll do it for this edition of Radio 815. Listen, guys, if you want to email us to tell us how great we're doing or to recommend other shows that we should talk about in the future, you can. Our email is at radio815 at AOL.com. If you want to catch up on past episodes that we've done, we're available on any streaming service that you can think of, and we're also available on YouTube where you can see the video version of this episode. Please come and check us out there. I put a lot of hard work into that, so a like, a comment would be much appreciated. But if you guys want to come and chat with me to talk about Duster, the best place to do that is on X. I'm at CrickFanatic88. But if you guys want to try and reach Matt, which you may not be too successful at, Matt, where can the folks come and try and bother you if they're lucky enough to get to you?
We can log movies on letterbox.com. My profile is MDC3000, so letterbox.com/MDC3000. And we can log movies together, or you can comment and be like, how could you give Karate Kid Legends only 2.5 stars when maybe you thought it was a 4.5 star movie? I doubt if there's anyone who thought it was a 4.5 star movie, come at me because I don't think you exist.
All right, guys. So on that note, I shall simply say thank you so much for watching. And as I say often, we'll talk back soon.